So this is for all the Cholim, Klal Yisrael, continuing with the theme of partitions. Okay, so if one's garden is not adequately fenced, one must continue to wear one's house key, that is on the belt or in some other permissible manner, until one is inside the house. However, if one has a front porch which incorporates the shape of an entrance, one may carry indoors from under the porch. Now, here's two pictures here. I don't know if it makes any sense here. See, there's a porch. If you go like underneath there, then it's considered indoors. But all past that is public domain and forbidden. It can't be, you're not allowed to carry it, which is that one there. It says, which one says wrong? Okay. And it says here, okay. Actually, last time we talked about something that was taught. Let's just show you that picture again. It says wrong there. It's upside down when I look at it.
What makes it wrong?
It has to be joined to there.
Okay.
That pole has to be joined and it has to be taught.
Okay.
But anyway, so continue. So there. So you can walk underneath there because I want you underneath that cover, that like roof thing or canopy. It's considered indoors. It's considered as part of being inside the house. Where this here actually looks like it is, but it isn't. Okay. So that's what they're saying. Yeah.
So the second one,
the front garden possesses a low wall, so they are a commonless. The house porch on the right has posts forming its Tzurat HaPesach, enabling one to carry indoors from under the porch. But the porch on the left has no Tzuras HaPesach and carrying is prohibited. So carrying prohibited here, carrying acceptable here, carrying allowed here, carrying prohibited here. It actually looks very similar. It doesn't look much, doesn't.
The second one that's wrong is that considered a separate structure to the house? Is that what you say?
No, it's not. I think it's the size of it or the way how long it protrudes to. That's the issue. Possibly.
All right.
But if there's no area, just rather don't carry, or just make sure that wherever you are, there's an Eruv. Well, there is an Eruv where you are for Shabbos.
Make sure one of my friends is a robe or gives a lot of droshes, so you can just ask him like you.
Yeah.
Kevin will ask you all the time.
There's a way to make an Eruv with the egg and bread in the middle of the area. I don't know if you know about.
Yeah, you drop off. Yeah, food at certain points.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys know that.
No. But what happens when you come back from school and the egg's eaten up and everything's gone? You got the Eruv.
On Shabbos, Gavin.
Now, one day I'll go through those halachas with you guys about
when you go to on the way back, eaten up. It's not a joke. It's actually like quite an important question.
Only on Yom Tov, though. Can't because you can extend the you can make a public area private, and then it's an
I'll tell you guys something, because you all know him. You know Edwin Snow?
Yeah.
His mom went down last night,
Are you joking?
What happened?
Yeah, I was. Everyone's okay. Everyone's okay. His whole family's got like about 5 kids. They're all okay. 4 kids, I think. 4 kids. They're all 100%. Family got out. What happened was, because of the wind last night, it was very cold. So they had supper, and they put the fireplace on, which they always do. I've been there before many times. And in winter, he's always got the fireplace on a Friday night. So it makes the room nice and warm. But with the wind going like that, what happens is the wind can actually catch into you should never ever do a fireplace when it's very windy outside.
With wood, like a wooden fireplace. We actually lit the wood and there was logs.
So he lights it with wood, but it's through the chimney that the wind came through the chimney, It was so strong the wind last night that it came through the chimney.
And blew the fire into the house.
It's possible it knocked over his chimney. We don't even know, because the whole place burned up and blew up as well. There's nothing really left. It's possible the wind came and just chucked his whole chimney off. So, all of a sudden the wind got into his house. But all all that he knows is that they were sitting there. They went to the other side of the house where the bedrooms are, and then the fire all of a sudden caught alight. So he saw a fire. They smelled something. He ran there, quickly ran and got his fire hydrant. He's a very meticulous oak, and he's got a baby fire hydrant. This thing was massive already. He said he evacuated straight away. Thank God he did, because within about 2-3 minutes, the whole place was ablaze. And so my next door neighbor is actually a black family staying there, lovely guys from the Congo. So they said, Gavin, wake up, there's something serious, will come out. So it wasn't that, it was about 9 o'clock. I was in my bed with an electric blanket, I was just reading. But so I had to quickly get dressed, ran outside, went to go see what's going on. Everybody's standing there, fire engines started coming. This fire was a humongous fire you've never seen. You know those massive bonfires that you've ever seen? It's about 20 of those all in one. This was a massive fire.
And it's
so
there where you live, eh? Yeah, where you live, Gavin. I know.
Right, he's the house next to Bendel, Israel Bendel. There, where you guys fetch me, Damon, where you fetch me. It's the house next to
Okay.
And that thing went in absolute flames. So you've never seen it. He lost everything, So I'll just tell you just quickly. Sorry, I know we're wasting time, but it's important. He lost the whole of Shut. He had a whole set of Shut. Remember, I used to borrow here and there 1 or 2 books from him, and I returned all of them. So the whole of Shut went up. That was sad. The other thing is his wife was very good. All their wedding pictures and that were all displayed over the walls and everything. So all of that's gone. I doubt they had copies, especially from those, you know. And then obviously all the clothes and everything, they came up with only what was on their back. And now you're talking a tzaddik of tzaddik. The same thing with the same thing happened about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago to Rabbi Abba. His house burned down too. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Both tzaddikim, so it's really strange. Often it's not a sign necessary to them, even though they are judged on a hairbreadth. It's a sign to the rest of the community to wake up. All right, that's my vote for the day. But also, I think you guys know him quite well. Damon and I met him at Arakim about 7 years ago when Damon grabbed me by my neck.
He's a good oak. Such a nice oak, yeah.
I laugh, but he was right. Thank you, man. But he's a very good guy. I met him right at the beginning, And he took a like towards me straight away, and he's been very good to me over the years. Phenomenal guy. Anyway, it's quite sad, but thank God he seems to be...
at least they didn't get harmed physically,
No one got harmed. We asked him if he's fully insured. He said to the best of his knowledge, he's fully insured and all of that. So hopefully it all comes through and he'll be okay. But it's quite a big ordeal.
Jesus.
Sorry, so that was my... It's not excitement. It's only excitement if it's somebody you really hate whose house burns down. Then Damon and I normally have it like a l'chaim outside. That didn't happen. It was a good mate, you know. So anyway, one of those things. Damon, please start. I apologize. Sure.
No, it's fine. I'm very sorry for him. I hope he uploaded. I hope Kevin, he had uploaded pictures of his family wedding and stuff. I hope he uploaded everything to the cloud.
I think that there was no digital in the. Oh, you mean scanned it and all that? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, people must scan their stuff. It's very important. I don't think people realize because it can just go. Anyway.
That's a pity. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that.
Yeah. Like one of the people you don't expect it to ever happen to. Anyway, I mean, I'm naughtier than his entire family put together, you know. So it doesn't make sense. Okay. Damon, sorry.
That's fine. We're on 49b1. So the Gemara basically inquires whether the disagreement between Rabba and Rav Chisda was debated previously. So shall we say that this is a matter of dispute between Tanaim? For it was taught in a brisa, if an Israelite woman was married to a convert and she became pregnant by him, and someone struck her during the convert's lifetime, causing her to miscarry, he gives the value of the offspring to the convert. Regarding a case where he struck her after the convert's death, but she was obviously still pregnant and miscarried, it's taught in one brisa, the damager is liable to pay, and it was taught in another brisa, the damager is exempt from paying. Is it not presumable that these brisot are reflective of a Tanaic dispute as to whether the convert's rights are acquired by the wife or not, depending at which point the husband with no heirs dies. Thus, the Tanaic dispute parallels that of Rabbah and Rav Chisda. So the Gemara continues, according to Rabbah, it's certainly a matter of Tanaic dispute. And according to Rav Chisda, shall we be forced to say that it is a matter of Tanaic dispute? Or could we perhaps explain both Brysot as compatible with Rav Chisda's opinion? So the Gemara says, look, there's no difficulty in reconciling both Brysot with Rav Chisda's view, because we can explain that they're not dealing with payment for the offspring themselves, because the previous discussion in the Gemara was saying who gets the damages for the miscarriage based on the value of the offspring. And it obviously belonged to the father of the offspring. But here it's saying, look, there wasn't any specificity with this prices, these ones. So it actually is discussing the payment for the appreciation that had occurred in the woman through the offspring that was lost through her miscarriage. What do we mean by appreciation? When she becomes pregnant, she looks more robust, is more attractive to her husband, and therefore that loss of physical beauty or value does affect things to a certain extent, and that has a payment value. So accordingly, we say that this brisa, which exempts the damager, follows the rabbi's opinion. What do the rabbis say? That payment for this benefit ordinarily goes entirely to the husband. Okay? Accordingly, in a case where the husband was a convert and he died, then the damage is exempt. When is he exempt? Well, he's exempt when the husband dies, because if he's dead, he's not going to feel a loss of his wife's beauty that suddenly went downhill as a result of the miscarriage. Again, the husband's wife looked stunning. She was paid for, for the loss of that beauty that she developed, that robustness when she was pregnant. Who enjoys the look of his wife? The husband. And therefore, since he's dead, the damager doesn't have to pay for the husband. As far as the Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is concerned, he said, according to the opinion of Rava, by the way, is that it's slightly different. Why? Because the payment for the benefit ordinarily goes in part to the woman. So even if her husband dies, the damager remains liable, meaning that it was her body that went through this ordeal to house a baby. And since she suffers from everything from morning sickness to physiological changes, her husband enjoys the beauty of her looking robust during the pregnancy. But what does she enjoy? The experience of being pregnant. And since that appreciation and a look and her enjoying and feeling that her husband sees her in the most, productive state where she's carrying his child, all of that is at a loss. They share in terms of the damage. So the damager, whatever he owes, doesn't go entirely to the husband. Half the money goes to the wife and half the money goes to the husband. So if he owed 100 zuz, instead of the husband 100 zuz going to the husband, the wife would get the 50 zuz and the husband would get the 50 zuz, which means even if the husband dies, the damager is still liable to the 50 zuz to the wife. Gavin, I know you're cleaning your screen. Are you following the shir at all?
I am.
But Damon,
yeah.
You see, I know we've gone over this before. Generally, if the woman has a miscarriage, the husband gets all the damages. She doesn't get a share of anything.
No, not.
That's the general rule. Isn't that the general rule?
No.
And if the husband was a convert and he died.
No. That's not the general
rule. Then he gets nothing because there's no offspring, because it should go to him. And then.
Okay, so the general rule is there's certain things that go to the wife and there's certain things that go to the husband. So the general rule is, when we say the general rule, you mean the rabbis. The rabbis are saying that the value of the offspring goes entirely to the husband, okay? Entirely to the husband. And as far as damages that the wife sustains, we're not talking about appreciation loss in terms of her physical beauty while being pregnant. Because according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the husband and wife split it, according to Rabba's view. But according to the Rabbi's view, that enjoyment of her beauty, of her being pregnant and fertile with his child, the kick that he gets out of that, husband gets the money. You're right. So as far as the offspring and that appreciation, according to the rabbis, the husband gets it. But she gets the money with regards to pain she suffered as a result of the miscarriage. She gets that. And if she was actually disfigured from the damage, actually looked physically damaged from it, in a revealed part of the body, the husband gets 2/3, she gets 1/3. If it's in a concealed part of the body, for the actual tsar, she gets 2/3 and he gets 1/3. Okay? So that's pretty clear as far as the rabbis are concerned. That's easy enough. Now, does anybody, just hang on 1 second, guys. Just hang on, let me just see if I can get, just hang on, come here, cat. Come this side. Come, cranberry. Sorry, guys, I've just got to edit this part of the video out. All right. So just hang on for me, Kev, 1 second. Now, what does Rabbah say with regards to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel? Well, clearly, he talks about that there's no appreciation paid. Okay, there's no. You see, Rabbah and Rava disagree with Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Kevin. Rabbah said, look, I don't know what you're talking about in appreciation paid. There's no appreciation. The woman itself is at high risk of mortality while she's pregnant. So she's actually worth less while she's pregnant, because if she was sold as a maidservant, if she would survive the pregnancy, it's pretty risky. So in that particular case, he's saying there's no appreciation. As far as Rava is concerned, the husband and wife split it. So there are two different opinions with Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. How do we reconcile Rava and Rava? Is they're saying, look, if it's the first time she's pregnant, she's at a bigger risk. But if she's had many children before, then you can say there is an appreciation because it's very likely she will survive. And then we go according to Rava's explanation of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, and they split the appreciation. So that's the bottom line of what we've dealt with up until now. So what's this discussion that we're dealing with? And I just want to cover a little bit of ground, is that we say, look, Rav Chisda, you can explain both opinions according to Rav Chisda. Because according to Rabbah, it's a Tanaic dispute. Because Rabbah is saying, look, there's no appreciation. There's no appreciation paid for a pregnant woman, Gavin, because she's at mortal risk. Okay? That's his opinion. They reconcile it by afterwards the Gemara saying you can say it's not her first child, and therefore you can reconcile the two different opinions. But in reality, Rabbah hasn't changed his opinion. He's still saying that there's no real appreciation value because the woman is at risk with her life. So he's saying there's a Tanaic dispute only as far as the offspring is concerned. Okay? Because what does Rabbah say? Rabbah said, listen, if the husband was alive and she miscarried, then that portion goes to the husband's estate and his bank account. So if the husband dies before the damager made that full payment, well, the damager doesn't have to make the rest of the payments because it's not due to the wife. But if the husband dies and the wife is, pregnant with his child, okay, then actually now she's the sole beneficiary because it doesn't go into the husband's estate. So if anything has to happen to the wife in terms of a miscarriage and the husband's already passed on, then the damage has to pay the wife. That's what Rabbah's saying. So that's obviously a Tanaic dispute. We can see that we've also seen this with the Tanaic dispute. So as far as Rav Chisda is concerned, listen, you can explain both Bryces working according to Rav Chisda. Okay, so what's the Tanaic dispute, Gavin? Very simple. Is that Rabbah said that, listen, once the husband has died, okay, once the husband has died, if the wife has a miscarriage, it goes to her, okay? As long as he died before she had the miscarriage. Otherwise, it gets stuck in the husband's estate, whatever's paid, and whatever hasn't paid, the damager doesn't have to pay further. But the rabbis say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether the husband died and then she miscarries. The damager then is exempt. So therefore, Rabbah is disagreeing with who? The Bava Kamma, which is the rabbinic opinion. Does that make sense? Rabbah is disagreeing with the rabbis. And therefore, since Rabbah is disagreeing with the rabbis, it mimics an earlier Tanaic dispute because Rabbah and Rav Chisda, this was a whole argument before. And we say, yes, we can see that. But if you're explaining it according to Rav Chisda, it can work with both different opinions. How does it work with both different opinions? Okay, with the fact that Rav Chisda said we're not talking about offspring. As far as offspring is concerned, he doesn't have an issue. Is that goes to the father entirely. What he's talking about is appreciation of the body. So Rav Chisda is basically saying that, he's going according to the rabbis that say appreciation isn't paid to the wife because that goes to the husband, totally. The husband's no longer alive. She doesn't get it. As far as Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's explanation by Rava is that the husband and wife share in it, and therefore the wife still gets her share even if the husband has passed on. So then the Gemara is asking a question. What question is the Gemara ask? The Gemara is going to ask, I don't understand, what difference does it make if the husband died before she miscarried or after she miscarried? Either way, she's entitled to her share. Because he gets a share, she gets a share. If the husband's alive, he doesn't get his share. If the husband is alive, he gets his share. But the wife either way gets her share. So the Gemara is saying, what do you mean exempt from payment? How do you explain it? She's not exempt from being paid. She's still owed her share, whether the husband's alive or not. Can you hear the question of the Gemara? Guys?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, now I just want to see if you understand me. I know you can hear me. But
Yeah.
This is not an audio test. It's a comprehension test. So
Funny wasn't the best answer, but I was just trying to make sure that you realized that we were concentrating.
Yeah. So what the Gemara is answering is very straightforward. The Gemara is saying, look, this is not a question of if he's exempt from paying her. It's is he exempt from paying her the full money, or is he liable to pay her the full money? That's the question. That's the question. Not whether or not she'll get a share. She'll get a share anyway. But does she get the husband's share? That's the question by the Gemara. If he died while she was still pregnant and then she miscarried, because the Gemara says accordingly, okay? And that brisa which holds the damager liable follows Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who says that payment for this benefit ordinarily goes in part to the woman. Thus, even if her husband was a convert and died, the damager remains liable. The Gemara objects, if the brisa that holds the damager liable reflects the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and refers to the payment for the woman's appreciation through pregnancy, why does it deal specifically with the case in which she was struck after the convert's death? Even if it occurred during his lifetime too, she receives 1/2 of this payment. That's a discussion. So the Gemara answers, if she is struck during the husband's lifetime, she receives 1/2 of the payment for the appreciation in her body through the offspring. But if she is struck after his death, she receives the entire payment for this benefit. In other words, she even receives the husband's portion. So the brisa actually means that the damager is liable to pay her this value in full, and therefore specifically refers to a case in which she struck her after the husband's death. Okay? So there is an alternative answer to answer the contradictory nature of the brisa. It says, or if you prefer to say that according to Rav Chisda, both this brisa and that brisa reflect the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, but they deal with different issues. Here in the brisa that holds the damager liable, we're dealing with the value of the appreciation in the woman through the offspring. Whereas here in the brisa that exempts the damager, we are dealing with the value of the offspring themselves. Okay. So what we are saying is Rav Chisda holds that at the time of the convert's death, his wife acquires the right to his share of the payment for the appreciation in her body through the offspring. Okay. So then, but not the right of payment for the offspring itself. So even Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel would agree with that. Okay. Because we were only talking about a diverse opinion with regards to her appreciation. So if one strikes her after the convert's death and causes a miscarriage, he is liable to pay her in full for the lost value of her appreciation through pregnancy, but is exempt from paying her for the offspring. This law, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, according to the rabbis, the damage is exempt even from paying her the value of appreciation through pregnancy. Okay, so what's happening is, how is this explained by Rav Chisda? Very simple. It could be talking about two separate issues. When you're talking about appreciation, she gets her share and she gets the husband's share. Or, but if it's regarding for the offspring, she doesn't get anything. That's what it's saying. That's the other way to interpret it. Now, we're going to go ask a question in 49b2. So let me just finish the sentence. The Gemara objects to both explanations. From the law stated here regarding the appreciation in the woman through the offspring, let us infer what the law is regarding the value of the offspring themselves. Since you concede that upon the convert's death, his wife acquires his share of the appreciation in her body through pregnancy, it should follow that she also acquires his right to payment for the offspring themselves. And furthermore, from the law stated here according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, let us infer what the law is according to the rabbis. Since you concede that according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who ordinarily awards the husband half the appreciation through pregnancy, the wife of the convert acquires her husband's share upon his death, it follows that according to the rabbis who ordinarily award the husband the entire payment, she also acquires her share. On what basis does Rav Chisda distinguish between the payment for appreciation through the offspring and the payment for offspring themselves, and between the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and the rabbis? Okay. So what it's saying is Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and the rabbis basically disagree only regarding the disposition of payment for the appreciation through pregnancy during the husband's lifetime. There's no reason to believe that they also disagree regarding the wife's ability to acquire the husband's rights upon his death. So what we're saying here, Kevin, is that they might only have a disagreement while the husband is alive. Because while he's alive, they're saying with regards to the offspring, there's no discussion. They agree. It's only with regards to her body appreciation. So since from her body appreciating, according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, they split the money, the rabbis, the husband gets the whole money. That's the bone of issue. That's the bone of contention. As far as the value of the offspring, that goes to the husband or his heirs. So they're saying, listen, when the husband dies and then she miscarries, she inherits the rest of his portion for the appreciation of her bodily loss due to appreciation. She gets whatever it's owing to her because that's her spouse. So then why would the rabbis disagree that the money that was due to him for the offspring, if he had no heirs, why can't that go to the wife? In other words, the money of the appreciation, his share, is going to the wife according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Why? Who's to say in death the wife can't inherit the value of the offspring? The value of the offspring. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
So that's what the Gemara is asking. Maybe inheritance is a different law to the law set up in terms of damages action. They're two different laws. You have inheritance laws and you have payments for damages. They might not be the same thing, so there might not be a dispute there. So,
no, I think they are very different there.
Yeah. So the Gemara answers, they say, no, these matters are not analogous at all. Rather, the appreciation in the woman through the offspring, where she has a hand in this benefit during her husband's lifetime, according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who awards her half this payment, even if she is struck when her husband is alive. The law is that according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, the wife of the convert acquires the right to the entire payment when her husband dies. Regarding payment of the value of the offspring themselves, in which she does not have a hand during her husband's lifetime, even according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that law is that she doesn't inquire any share in it at all upon his death. And according to the rabbis who ruled that while the husband is alive, she has no share even in appreciation of her body through the offspring, the law is that upon death she does not even acquire this right from him. Okay, so what it's saying is, this is Rav Chisda's thesis, right? That when there's no husband, the Torah didn't impose any payment at all, applies only to any payment that is awarded fully to the husband. Okay, so that's the payment for the offspring according to all opinions. And the payment for the woman's appreciation through pregnancy according to the rabbis. But when the wife has a share in payment from the outset, according to whose opinion, guys, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, it's obvious that the right to such payment is not contingent upon the presence of a husband, but is like any other monetary right. When the husband dies, the wife is able to acquire his share. Does that make sense, guys?
I thought when the husband died, she got it regardless. No, through Rabbi Gamliel, that she gets the full amount, because then the laws of inheritance it doesn't apply. This is separate. This got nothing to do with the laws of inheritance. She just gets it because of this, what Rabbi Gamliel is saying.
Okay, but
because
okay.
No, what I'm saying, offspring is still in contention. Both the rabbis and Rabbi Gamliel both say that the offspring is a no-go regardless, before, after, any time. But as far as that full payment going through to her, so I've lost a little bit of track, but I think you kind of got a sense of where I'm going.
Yeah, but Gavin, Rav Chisda's thesis doesn't argue with you. Because what it's saying is as follows. No, just hear what I'm saying. It's not arguing with you. It's actually, when you say, but you thought, meaning that this is in contrary to what you thought. This is agreeing with your thought. Let me tell you why. It's because anything that the wife is entitled to while the husband is alive, she's entitled to the full payment when he's dead. Anything she's not entitled to while he's alive, she's not entitled to when he's dead. So, this is how it works. According to the rabbis who say the offspring and appreciation, all of that, Kevin, goes to the husband when the wife, while the husband's alive. The wife, when he dies, is not entitled to any of that, according to the rabbis. Okay? According to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, the offspring portion goes to the husband. The wife's not entitled to any of that. So therefore, when the husband dies, the offspring portion does not go to the wife at all. That doesn't go to, because she wasn't entitled to any of the share upon him being alive. So when he's dead, definitely she's not. The only thing it's saying is that since Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says that for the appreciation, according to the view of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, is entitled to half the appreciation. While he's alive, she gets out of 100 zuz 50 zuz. The husband gets 50 zuz. When he dies, she gets the full 100 zuz, because anything she's entitled to while he's alive, to a portion thereof, she's entitled to the full payment upon his death. Anything that she can't touch while he's alive, she's not entitled to.
No, so I understand, you did it very well.
No problem. All right.
Sentence, I just didn't hear one word correctly, and I thought it was something else.
No problem. All right, so we're going to the next part. So the Gemara now, we're on 49b2. The Gemara turns to other issues involving the property of a convert who died without heirs. Rav Yeva Seva inquired of Rav Nachman, if one, what?
It's Arthur. Just turn Arthur's down.
Is
Extra sound effects here.
Arthur, yeah, there we go.
Okay. The Gemara turns to other issues involving the property of a convert who dies without heirs. Rav Yeva Sava inquired of Rav Nachman, if one takes hold of the documents of a convert who died without heirs, what is the law with respect to the paper on which his notes are written? Does the person acquire ownership of the paper or not? So what it's actually saying is, if the convert died without heirs, leaving, he obviously doesn't leave any inheritors. It leads to a situation in which all of his property is technically hefker, it's ownerless. So the law is that the first person to seize it acquires it. So a man came and seized certain documents that had belonged to the convert, through which the convert had acquired liens on the lands of others. In other words, he seized promissory notes containing mortgages. And as Rav Yeva proceeds to explain, by seizing the documents, the person certainly doesn't acquire the rights to the land. The question is whether he acquires ownership of the paper that he seized. That's according to Rashi. Okay, well, we'll get to understand it now. So this is a bit of an odd one when I first learned it last week, because you're saying that if I grab title deeds or promissory notes, aren't I entitled to acquire that particular piece of land? So the reality is it seems not. Okay, so the Gemara is going to bring a distinction between two different things. There's a difference between land that the convert had, his self, and promissory notes is money owing to him by other Jews. I want you to just make that distinction. What's the distinction? Is that money owing by other Jews belongs, who owns that money? Listen, if I owe you 10,000, if I owe a convert 10,000 rand and the money's in my account, I have acquired the money. He's got a promissory note. He, at the end of the day, has to collect the money from me at which I owe him. If he's no longer there and somebody grabs that promissory note, I've got whoever, in other words, if the money isn't in my account and the money is lying around, then he can acquire that money because it's not in my possession. But whichever Jew takes it first, it's in his possession. So the money that I owe him is in my account. Therefore, I've acquired my money back. I've acquired what was meant to be his. So it's not ownerless. It's me. I'm the one that's acquired it because it happened to be in my account. So that's why there's not an issue. Another Jew can't come along and grab his promissory notes and say, I owe him money now that he's got the promissory notes. If a non-Jew, for example, had those, if a Jew had the promissory notes from a convert, and that convert had no heirs, and there was a non-Jew that owed money, you can grab it there, the promissory notes, because it's not acquired by a Jew. A Jew can only acquire from another Jew. Does that make sense, Kevin, Arthur? So that's why there's no acquisition. But there would be an acquisition or a case of an acquisition if you grab the title deed to the convert's property. Why? Because it's not in another Jew's hands at that point. It's ownerless. When it's a promissory note, that debt is in the hands of another Jew. So it's not ownerless.
He's got a partner, there'd be a problem, though. But that's a separate issue. Sorry, it's just that I was going to...
Yeah, no, if you've got a partner, that partner's in it. You've got a problem. The question would arise there is that, does it get paid to the legal entity, like a PTY Limited, or does the partner is entitled to only half the share or the full debt? So that's why...
Maybe half is on.
Not necessarily, Gavin, because companies that were developed afterwards, one of the modern inventions is that companies were legal entities that could act in and of itself, and the shareholdership would be divided amongst the remaining shareholders that were alive. So as a legal entity, I'm saying if the debt was held with a legal entity, like a PTY Limited,
that would have occurred then too, but obviously it would have. You're 100% right. I know that law from nowadays. But obviously,
Gammon might be asking in those days if they didn't have legal entities in terms of company, he might only be entitled to half the partner. You're right. No. All right. So all we're saying is as follows. I'm just going to quickly repeat this. The Gemara turns to other issues involving the property of a convert who died without heirs. Rav Yeva Sav inquired of Rav Nachman, if one takes hold of the documents of a convert who died without heirs, what is the law with respect to the paper on which these notes are written? Does the person acquire ownership of the paper or not? So clearly then, guys, it holds that there's nothing to talk about. In other words, it's a promissory note that the convert that died held that another Jew owes money. And since that other Jew owes money, he's got the money in his bank account, and therefore he's acquired that money by virtue of the fact that it's still in the creditor's bank account. Does that make sense, guys?
So, Damon?
Yeah?
Could you say that this is similar, just correct me if I'm wrong,
okay,
to the case where of the loss of the offspring, where the wife is not entitled to anything, like someone that makes the acquisition of the promissory also isn't entitled to anything.
Yeah, you could say that the money
is the same thing.
Yeah, that the money's in the damager's hands, and since the money's in the damager's hands, and it becomes hefker upon the convert husband dying, it stays in the hands of the one that was meant to pay it. Exactly that. So
being exactly the same. Well,
that's why they brought it up.
That's exactly why they brought it up. Okay, so they're saying, listen, if you can't collect on a promissory note, what are you stuck with? A piece of paper. Now the argument in the Gemara is, well, did you want it for the paper's sake? Because you can't certainly use it for the point of the paper, which is the promissory note. So does the person acquire ownership of the paper or not? Do we say that one who takes hold of a document does so with intent to thereby acquire only the rights to the land mentioned in it, but did not actually take hold of the land, he does not acquire it? And he also does not acquire the document, because when he takes hold of it, his intent was not to acquire the document itself. So all it's saying is, look, if you just take hold of a document, it doesn't give a person the right to the articles necessarily mentioned in it. One who performs an act of acquisition, a kinyan, without the intent to thereby acquire ownership of the item doesn't in fact acquire it. Since the person seized the documents with intent only for the rights to the land, but not for the paper itself, he does not acquire the paper. Accordingly, if someone else seized it from him with intent to acquire the paper, in order, for example, to use it as wrapping paper, that person will become the owner, Rashi. I personally, guys, don't understand the purpose of this argument. It's actually, to me, it doesn't make any sense. The point of it is saying, look, why is the person trying to acquire that piece of paper? Because he thinks he's going to be entitled to collect on the promissory notes. Since that was an intent, he wasn't trying to collect the paper for the paper's sake. He was trying to collect the paper because he thought he could get an acquisition of the promissory notes. In that case, since he cannot legally, does he acquire the paper to use for something else? I don't understand the discussion, to be honest, the point of it. But let me just read on. Rav Nachman retorts. He says to Rav Yeva Sava, answer me to this, my master. Does the man need the document to wrap it over the mouth of a flask? Meaning, are you using it to the paper for some practical use for the paper itself? Rav Yeva replies, he says to Rav Nachman, yes, to wrap and to wrap. What does he mean? It means, should we think he originally intended to acquire the paper when it's unlikely that he had any practical use for it? That's according to Rashi. And the answer is there's no basis for concluding that he did not intend to acquire the paper. Okay. In other words, it says here the elucidation has followed Rashi's explanation that the inquiry pertains to a document containing a lien on land, such as a promissory note. Numerous commentators wonder, however, we have seen, and the Gemara states explicitly that when a convert dies without heirs, all debts to him are automatically cancelled because the borrower is deemed to have seized the money that he owed to the convert. Accordingly, any liens resulting from these debts are cancelled as well. Why then did Rav Yeva say that the person does not acquire the rights to the land because he fails to seize the land itself? Even if he seized it, he couldn't acquire those rights since the lien is now void. Furthermore, since the liens have been cancelled, the documents are worthless except to be used as wrapping paper. It should therefore be obvious that the person seized them with intent to grab the paper. So other people explain, or other Rabbonim explain, that the inquiry is pertaining to deeds of land that the deceased convert owned. Rav Yeva states that one does not acquire the now ownerless land by seizing the deed. One must perform an act of acquisition on the land itself, a kinyan on the land. He inquires, however, whether the person acquires the paper on which the deed is written, since the deed actually has got no benefit unless you do an acquisition of the land. So I think we can just say that this is teaching us an important principle. Let's not talk about wrapping paper because I don't get that. You can acquire any sort of paper. It's just saying that if he didn't intend to acquire the paper, but the value of the paper was what was written on, can he use the paper? I think the main thing that the Gemara is trying to illustrate, hopefully, is that if there was any liens owing for debts, those debts are cancelled because the convert has no heirs in which to claim it. However, if it's his own property deed, this is interesting. There's no debts that are cancelled. That document is valid, providing you make a kinyan on the land itself. Okay? So that paper isn't enough to collect the land. You need to make a kinyan of the land. The question is, how do you make a kinyan on the land if the convert has died? Because a kinyan is when you take it. So say, for example, I'm buying it from the seller. A handshake is a kinyan, okay? Grabbing a piece of soil from the seller to the buyer is a kinyan. Standing on the land, I think most kinyans, I'm not sure 100%, need the consent of the seller. You can't just go on somebody's land and then make a kinyan, even if you got a document. I'm sure it would have to be an act of acquisition where the seller acknowledges a transfer of ownership to the buyer, or the creditor to the debtor to the creditor.
I know you can put. Sorry to interrupt you. I know you can put a kinyan yourself into your will. It means you don't have the consent or anybody else's knowledge of it. So it can be a one-sided kinyan from that perspective.
Halachically or in secular law?
No, halachically. I was looking into that. That was the whole thing. So you can actually write a kinyan. In fact, a lot of people do because they don't want to follow secular. No, they want to overrule halachic law to some degree. So they do that by writing a kinyan.
Okay, but
that's my information.
That's different, Gavin. That becomes a shtar. So a shtar is something different. A shtar is a document in which you're acknowledging that somebody is taking the property on your behalf after you. It's a will and testament. Here we're saying a third party, which did not have the consent of the convert before he died, acquired the paper and now has acquired the land. It's not an acknowledgement by the deceased while alive to say he wishes to pay his creditor or give the property over to a buyer. It's not specifying a person. That's the problem here. Is that some anonymous person can't pick up your title deed and make a kinyan on himself, by himself, without that acknowledgement.
And yeah, actually, if a person does it in his will, he's doing it to himself. He's entitled to do a kinyan on himself. I mean, he's there, he's present, he's the owner. He can do a kinyan. He's alive at that point in time. The Kinyan is not done after the guy. That actually does pick up with what you say.
But does it specify a person when you do a Kinyan with yourself?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know.
It can't, Gavin, it can't be when he makes a Kinyan on himself. You can't make a Kinyan on something you own. Just hear the law. Just give me a chance. Give me a chance. I own something. I don't make an announcement that I own what I own. I own what I own. The only time you can make a Kinyan is to say, I bequeath this to such and such a person or institution. You can't.
Yeah.
Okay, but then it's directed towards a particular target.
Correct. And the owner was present. I mean, because he was still alive when he did that.
Correct, so, but I'm saying that's different. That's a standard will and testimony where you say, I wish to bequeath this to this person or this institution. You don't make a self-Kinyan on something you own yourself. It is yours.
No, it's self-Kinyan. It's not a self-Kinyan. It's exactly like your Kinyan. Yeah, the problem is you're missing the one side because the guy's passed away. With the other one, it was done prior to the guy passing away.
Correct, which means you need consent. So the whole point of a Kinyan is that you can't just pick up somebody else's document in a robbery and say, I now own a house in Santon. You can't just do that. I mean, you've got heavy bouncers that come and collect debts. They collect a car and a title deed, and it's difficult to prove that you never consented, but it is not difficult if you prove that no money has been transferred. It means it's forced against your will. So let's just quickly wrap it up because Kevin and we all want to finish this stuff and then we're nearly finished. Gab, sorry, but we need to cover ground, then we're done. I've got 10 minutes.
Kenyan because I was researching it, but that's
a related issue is debated. It's discussed. Rabba said, if a security of an Israelite was in the possession of a convert who had lent him money, okay? In other words, a Jew from birth had borrowed money from a convert and had given him an article as security, like collateral, so that the convert had a lien on that Israelite's article, okay? So we talk about collateral, whether it's land or anything else. And the convert died without heirs, and another Israelite came and seized the security, intending to acquire the rights to it. So what do we mean there? He wanted the now ownerless lien and to force the first Israelite to redeem the security from him by paying him the amount of the loan. So what it was a convert. I owe money to a convert. That convert dies. But I said to him, in the meantime, he can have my car as collateral. Then another Jew takes that collateral and says, listen, your car is worth 150,000 Rand. Give me the 10,000 Rand that you owe the convert, and then you'll get your car back. He's not entitled to keep the car. That's theft. But is he entitled to keep the collateral in return for the loan paid? Does he acquire now the debt because he's the first to seize it? That's what the Gemara is asking, okay? So it says we extracted from his possession and returned it to the Israelite who owned it originally. In other words, my car now comes back to me if the convert died. Another Israelite can't hold me by extortion in order to say, pay the money that you owe the convert to me. What is the reason? Since the convert died without heirs, his lien on the security was dissolved, and the security automatically reverted to its original owner. By contrast, if a security of a convert was in the possession of an Israelite who had lent him money, in other words, I had the car from a convert. I lent a convert 100,000 Rand. And he gave me his car worth 150,000 Rand, okay? And he still owed me 50,000 Rand. So I've got the car as collateral. And what happens then? And the convert dies without heirs, and another Israelite came and seized the security intending to acquire it. The lender who held the security originally has acquired the portion of the security corresponding to his funds that he had lent the convert. And if the security is worth more than that amount, the Israelite who seized it acquired the remainder of the value. So what we're saying is we bring in a converse case. A convert borrowed money from a Jew and gave him an article of security. And then the Jew had a lien on the convert's article. So now the lender's lien on the article remains in force despite the convert's death. And by dint of his lien, he automatically acquired the portion corresponding to his loan in payment thereof. Any additional value contained in this article is ownerless and may be seized by the other person. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Kabb, do you and Arthur understand? Can I put it another way? Let me go over.
Yeah. So I was just, my mind switched off there for a few minutes.
That's fine. So somebody, there was a convert, Kevin, and the guy gave you his car, okay? And the car was worth 150,000. He paid you 50,000, and he owed you another 50,000, and then you owed him the extra 50,000 for the car. Okay, so you've got a car worth 150,000 from the convert. You've been paid 50,000 of that, and you were only owed 100 grand. Okay, you only owed 100 grand, but you took 150 grand collateral because you wanted to make sure that you could cover your loan, the money you lent him. So he paid you 50 grand. The convert died. There's 50 grand he owes to you. Gavin comes to seize the car from you. He comes past you one day, has a conversation, sees the car keys, sees the car papers, and grabs the car. And now he's got the car. Now, is he entitled to keep the full car? The law says no. You are entitled to sell the car with Gavin and get the 50,000 rand you remain, okay, that's remained owing to you, and Gavin can keep the extra. Whether or not you'll be friends afterwards is a different story. But
I'm a friendly debt collector. What are you talking about?
So, but Kevin is entitled to get payment, use the asset to get paid for whatever is owing, and the person that sees the asset, another Jew, can keep whatever's left. That's all we're saying. Let's move on. We're nearly done. Okay. The Gemara wonders, but why does the one who seized it acquire anything? Even though the lender did not have intent to acquire it after the convert's death, let the courtyard acquire it for him automatically. Okay? So what does this mean? Let the courtyard acquire it for him automatically. In other words, the security is stored in Kevin's domain, and therefore he should acquire it under law, under Kinyan Chatzer, which is acquisition by courtyard, which states that anything ownerless resting in Kevin's domain, by virtue of it being contained there, is Kevin's. So if it's in Kevin's house, Kevin can't just take something in his house. That's in Bava Kamma, the 11th and 12th daf, guys. Okay? So basically, Rav Yossi Bar Chanina said, a person's courtyard acquires objects for him even without his knowledge, meaning that even if a person is unaware that an object is in his domain, the law of Kinyan Chatzer causes him to acquire it automatically. In our case, then, even the lender is unaware that the convert died, his courtyard should automatically acquire for him the now ownerless article. So, Kevin, what it's saying is here, it doesn't mean that you're unaware that the car is parked in your garage. You know the car's parked, but you're unaware that the convert died. Okay, you're unaware. But Gavin knew 2 seconds after it happened that the convert died, and therefore ran to quickly get the car and the papers and figured he'd make himself a quick 50K. And you got it. It's not that you were unaware that you had that asset, because an acquisition by courtyard means 2 things. Even if you're not aware of something that's in your courtyard, it's yours. But even if you are not aware that the person died and you've got their collateral in your courtyard, it's still yours. So Gavin hasn't got a right to it. Let me finish, Gav.
I know that's the other one.
Yes, so it belongs to Kevin if it's in his property. Okay? So the Gemara answers, they say, what are we dealing with here? In a case where the lender is not present in town. Okay, so Kevin's gone back to Israel. when the convert dies. For the law is that in any case where he himself is present in town, so that if he wanted to acquire the object, he could acquire it through his own performance of an act of acquisition, his courtyard too can acquire it for him and spare him the necessity of performing the acquisition. But in any case where he himself is not present in town, so if he wanted to acquire the object, he could not acquire it through his own action. His courtyard too cannot acquire it for him. So this is a discussion that Gemara's reasoning is that a man's courtyard is considered his emissary in regard to effecting acquisition of articles placed in it. So there's a general rule that a man can appoint an emissary only to achieve something that he himself has the ability to do, but not to achieve something that is beyond his ability. That's in Kedushin 23b. So the Gemara reasons that when maybe, for example, Kevin is back in Israel, he can't literally start the car in his garage as collateral from the convert or hide it somewhere else because he's out of town. And therefore, the courtyard can't act as his emissary. Does that make sense? So then while Kevin's gone back to Israel, Gavin's decided to take the car. Because since Kevin isn't there to be able to touch the car physically, he can't get his courtyard to act on his behalf as an emissary. Now, obviously, the logic doesn't make sense to us in modern times. Why?
Yeah.
Because the Gemara concludes with the retraction. But the halacha is that Rabba's ruling actually applies only to a case where the security is not in the lender's courtyard at the time of the convert's death, so that he cannot possibly acquire it by means of his courtyard. If it is in his courtyard, however, he acquires it automatically, even if he is not present, and anyone who seizes it must return it to him. So, Kevin, what we know, and this is modern law, is you don't have to be there in order for your property to protect you, because it's considered trespassing if Gavin goes there without your permission. Are you with me? Because it's still yours. It doesn't have to be a physical extension of you just because you're absent. That's the modern law. Okay? So what we're saying is if you leave the car in a parking lot, like in Genesis or Pick and Pay Norwood, then whoever acquires it, that's your stupidity, because you haven't got the legal protection of having it in your premises. So if you leave it with the car papers, say it's a car, and the documents are in the car, because if the car papers are in your car or in your house, the person can't take the car. That's theft. You can get insurance. But if you left the car papers in the car, well, sorry for you. It's out of your premises. The next person gets to keep the car. So it's proving that, according to modern law, it doesn't have to be your emissary, that you have to be there in order for your property to work for you. It's your possession. Does that make sense? All right, guys, we're done.
What about Arthur? Tell us your schedule for next week, please, so we can. What time are you? What are you working on?
Same as it was last week.
6:30 kickoff for you.
Yeah.
6:30.
Yeah.
6:30 share. Okay, 6:30 share for us. Okay, great. Then I can plan my week for. Okay.
You can 6:30 or even 6, because I'll be home by 7.
No,
6 o'clock as well, so it's easier. But what time is the mincha for you guys? That's our thing.
Damon, we can make it 6:15. Damon.
6:15, I think.
15 minutes earlier. How's that? Can you do it, Gavin?
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm the same as you, Kevin. I can do it. You can do it. We can make
6:15. Yeah.
I think we're done by then. We can start.
Yeah.
I leave my clients. I'll make it on easy. It takes me 24 minutes to get home from the beach. Okay. I've timed it before.
You know Kevin's course when he says, what time is kickoff?
I always try to use it, but some people don't appreciate it. Yeah, Arthur
I like
does,
it.
Even though Arthur's not a sports fan.
Look, I may take a dip after the client. I don't know.
Damon, while you're on the line, okay, I recorded something. I recorded the soccer while we had the show. You see how from I am, eh? How do I watch the recording now? How do I stop? How do I go to DSTV and watch that recording now?
I'm so from I don't know. I don't have to. No.
Kevin, how do I
Honestly,
do
I
it?
don't have
How do I do
to. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It was recording during the show. Now, how do I watch it?
But I honestly don't know because I don't have
Go to
DirecTV.
YouTube. Go to Rabbi YouTube then. Consult Rabbi Rav YouTube.
What app are you using? Are you using DSTV or what are you
No, it was on the decoder, my parents' decoder, and the TV with the normal, not on an app. How do I watch that recording now? It's recorded.
I swear I haven't
I'm
had
watching.
DSTV since 2006.
I don't know, just go press play.
You don't have a TV either, Damon, because you
I
said
haven't. No, I have a TV, but I use like Netflix, Bflix stuff. So I don't know, Kev. Otherwise, I'd help you with pleasure, mate. I really would.
No, I'll go to YouTube. How's it? I'll go to YouTube.
Go to YouTube. YouTube knows everything.
Knows everything except Gemara, except
It does now. It's got Bava Kamma on it. All 300 lessons. So improving.
Yeah, listen, if we carry on like this and all of us eat right and eat healthy like also this, then we should all be able to get the whole of shut up on what's called YouTube. And if we kept on until the Mashiach comes and we all stay alive, the Mashiach comes, we can actually finish it.
As long as the Mashiach's coming in the next 10 years, it'll be good.
Yeah, no, I think it is.
9.
According to most Kabbalistic thoughts, it's supposed to be within the next 10 years or so, 10 or 20 years max.
Guess about all I've got left. My father would live till 60, so I'm almost 50. So I'm targeting. Well, I'm going forward to family history. I promise I'll leave you the details how to get into the account and how to upload stuff, guys. Don't panic.
Thanks, Arthur. You read my mind.
and Damon, how to make a Kenyan and all this stuff.
I'm not interested in that. I want you to give us the on how to get into Shemayim, like in the good part, you know.
Well, that's when you die. That's easy.
But it could be in your guys. Thanks, eh?
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, guys. Have a good